Welcome to God and Matter. My name is Arlene J.M. Grant, and today from South Africa, I have Petunia Thulo. Petunia, you're an outstanding person. You and I met through Google Plus, I believe, many, many years ago. We remained in touch, and we actually met once in Washington, D.C. when you came here for a conference. So I'm so happy to be able to have you as a guest today. You're an outstanding person. You do amazing things. Why don't you tell the people who you are?
Thank you so much, first of all, for that warm introduction. I was trying to think when and how long we actually met. It's true, it's been that long, many years ago. Yes, my name is Petunia Thulo from South Africa in Cape Town this afternoon. I normally ask me how to introduce myself. I'm always like, where do we start? But that contextualize it for this conversation, for the purpose of this session. I'm one of many. I'm the eldest of 5. I've got a 3-year-old niece. I'm a family-oriented person, I like to believe, as far as that goes. And I've always been involved with few things, especially in the last 10 years or so. Prior to that, it was just school, and I didn't even do much, actually, coming to think of it, going back to my school days. But the point is, these days I find myself doing a few things related to community development, and I believe that's part of today's conversation. That's me.
That's great. So you do a lot of work with children in South Africa, I've noticed. You have a group called Dare to Dream.
That is correct, yeah.
Do you want to talk about what that is? Why are you daring people to dream, and who are you daring to dream?
I'd love to share a little bit of about Dare to Dream Leadership Institute for Girls. It's actually just to give a little bit of background. Initiative that I started in 2014, and 2 years ago we rebranded. I meshed with a similar organization based in Belgium, and we decided to collaborate. That's why the name changed. And basically what we do, amazing things, and as I'm saying, we've been doing it since 2014, but with specific from the South Africa or the local setting in particular. It started in a small village where I used to live, or close to where I used to live at the time in 2014. At this time, I was already done with my studies, but I've always wanted to do during, and I'm completed with my studies, and I still live in this town. And I took the resources I had at the time, made few calls, and long story short, it became what is today known as Dare to Dream Leadership Institute for Girls, which is an initiative that mentors, coaches specific young girls in villages. So that's one way of answering this question. And what we're doing now in 2020, starting already last year, is we realized that as we reach and fixing that, and that's good. We also, at the same time, we realized that we need to start including the boys into the conversation. And that's basically where we are as the initiative. And going forward, the name will just become Dare to Dream Leadership Institute, to be more inclusive and to invite boys into the room. So yeah, we are in a process where the focus is not just about empowering and equipping our young girls, our young sisters, for that matter. We want to include the younger brothers too, yes.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Now, we are doing this via Zoom, and so sometimes there are bandwidth interferences. So I just want to summarize what you said and what I understood, because there was some breaking up. You said that you created your institute, and in 2014, you saw a shift in your institute to also merge with an organization in Belgium. And
Yes,
so your organization is not only in South Africa, but also in Belgium. And your shift has now moved forward that you're helping girls and also boys to dream. and the initiative is more inclusive.
Absolutely, that is where we are. And beyond South Africa, communities in South Africa, with the help of our Belgian partners, we also at the same time had the privilege to partner with one organization in India and the other organization in the east part of Africa. I started in 2014 with this idea, and over the years realizing that there is actually a need, and the whole notion of we are stronger together, because there are other people doing amazing work in different communities as far as, you know, mobilizing and empowering goes. So the idea, the long-term vision also then became, how do we reach out to even more younger people in the work that we do? And that's why it's also important to have, you know, an organization in Uganda, in Kenya, where together we work.
I'm so proud of you. So proud of you. You're such a humble light. You're welcome. I am so happy that you are my sister in spirit. Now, let me ask you something. With what you do, how did you come up with the idea? I mean, this is a big project to exist. How did you know to do this?
You know what, Ali? That's why when I started at the beginning, I gave that a little bit of back end story with my studies. And, you know, I believe look, it's part of who I am. I like to believe that sitting here this afternoon, I had the privilege to go to university in South Africa. It's university, that's what we call beyond high school. So during my university days, I had the opportunity to study at one of the best university in the country. And over and above what we studied, you know, in a lecture hall, there was also a strong emphasis in community work. And that's where also I started getting more involved as a student community. We had that going. And I remember, and by this time I'm in my 20s, in my early 20s. And I remember thinking back then that came almost wrong. I myself from a very here in the country, so that the connection happened naturally, whereby every time we went into a township or into a school, it wasn't science rocket to me that, you know, first of all, what the needs are or what it looks like. So, you know, being practice, natural. But to answer your question, I like to believe it was always something that was in me to want to give back. So it's been an honor, so to speak, looking at the, what's happening currently, where we're going as people, and how can we come together. Like I mentioned earlier as well, so many people today are doing so many amazing things when coming to empowering young people, whether just girls or boys. So there's a lot of that going. What does it mean to me as an individual and the work that I do? I continue to do it because also the approach we have has always been, we don't go into a space and ask the young people we work with or tell them what to do. We go into a space, what it is they're looking for, and how, as an organization, initiative, as a foundation, as an institute, how it can help. So that's the approach. So far, it's been fulfilling, to say the least.
When you say fulfilling, to say the least, how does it fulfill you helping others? I imagine that it's an amazing experience for you and for them.
I've grown a lot as a person, as an individual. At the beginning of each year, I don't necessarily do solution as such. What I do, I make time to find a corner in my house and sit for a very long time with a notebook and just create a space and a moment really where I take stock of the previous year. So I will look at the previous year and then that way prepare for the current year. So fulfilling in a way that as a person I've grown to realize that when God places in on this earth, it's not just about you, it's more than about you. And to be able to, because I also strongly believe in the whole Ubuntu, the love Ubuntu, and that when you've been given, when you have something to share, it's only natural that you do so with those that you care. Of course, I understand that with so many things happening, we're not going to solve everything, and I'm not always going to be available for every young learner or young student who needs mentorship. But I do acknowledge that within my sphere of influence, I'm privileged enough to share what I've been given. Does that answer the question?
It does answer the question. It does answer the question. And it also is just a beautiful thing. It's true. When you have this thing, this gift, it is your responsibility to share it. The reason that you have that gift is why you're here on this earth, I think.
Yes, I believe so. I absolutely believe that. And there are, of course, there hasn't been an easy journey. It's not, I don't wake up every day with a smile on my face that we're going to change the world. I'm going to get into my car and drive to the nearest township, have a group of young people. It's not my everyday reality, but every day I remind myself why I do what I do, what's the purpose. And sometimes I forget. Sometimes I ask myself, is it really, are we making a tangible change? Are we reaching that one person? Because from the beginnings, for me, it was always, even if it's just one girl from the beginning, and meet some of this along the way, and be able to hear their success, so to speak. So yeah.
So when you said that, you said something that was really interesting. You said when you wake up, you don't always feel happy and hopeful, and then you recenter yourself to focus. What are some of the things that you do in your recentering process?
That's a very interesting question. I'm generally a routine-driven person, so to speak. Always looking for ways and opportunities to create moments of silence, because I can at the same time be easily distracted. So it's very important for me to find that moment. One of the ways I wake up earlier than I'm supposed to wake up to have a devotional time. And my devotional time will include, by this time, I've made a cup of coffee. I've sat down with my devotional book. Sometimes I'll have a music in the background. Now it's still summer days over here, so I can open the window or open the curtains and let the sunlight come in. So that's how I send myself in the morning. That's how I begin my day, with the reminder that here's another day, an opportunity to go into the day with open hands.
Open hands. I love that. The opening of the hands, is that saying yes to God and being expectant?
Yes. Actually, it's interesting that that's what I said. Open hands, open heart, to say, here I am, God. Whatever may be, let it be. So definitely expectance. I go into the day to say, whatever encounter happens today, I wanna be alert. I don't wanna come in with preconceived ideas. I wanna go in with, see it, let me hear it, let me not miss the opportunity. And sometimes the ordinary day it's nothing extraordinary, going into, before the lockdown, going into shopping mall. And even in that routine or in that activity, to have that open heart, open hands attitude.
That's a beautiful attitude, and I hope that the listeners will take that away as something to explore for themselves. When you talked about before the lockdown, it struck me and it reminded me about the fact that we're having this conversation, and you're in South Africa, so most likely it would have occurred through a virtual means, but How is life for you now with this lockdown? What's going on?
The BBC News actually published a very, what I would like to think is a balanced article today, which I read an hour ago. It's a long article, but basically saying what's been happening in the last 7 days in South Africa. But to answer your question, Ali, we are in the country at the moment, we are at 21 days lockdown. It started last week, Thursday. It will go on for another 2 weeks. What that basically means, if you will see, if you happen to read the BBC News article about how South Africa is responding to COVID-19 and the measures that have been put in place, you will learn that it's, if you were to compare to how other countries around the world have responded, South Africa seems to have more stricter rules in place, which basically means unless it's you're going to buy essentials. So there's a list of what your essentials is. People are not allowed alcohol and cigarettes. You go out also, you're allowed to go out. So if it's a medical situation, which makes it very difficult. But the approach is, it goes without saying, is to obviously try to get to the bottom of minimize the spread. And we've seen what's been happening with the increase. So the lockdown, that's what it means for us. And for me personally, the day before the official lockdown, I moved into my apartment. So I'm here by myself, completely alone in my own apartment. So it's interesting time of reflection. Definitely, it's an interesting time to see how do you cope being alone. How do you cope with yourself? Because it's different if you are an introvert or if you are someone who normally works from home, and now we all work from home. How do you approach that? So that's our 21 days lockdown in short.
Well, I'm in Maryland. In the US, we don't have necessarily a national lockdown in place. There are stay-at-home orders. Initially, there was encouragement to stay home, and then there actually was orders that were placed because people were not listening to the instruction and suggestions voluntarily. So now you can be arrested and different things. You're allowed to go out to exercise once a day is kind of the way it is. You're allowed to go for essential items. I don't know that they've told us what the list is of essential items, but you know what's essential by what's allowed to be opened. So, for example, the grocery stores are open. The pharmacies are open. You have gas stations that are open. Banks are open. And I think you can still get liquor, and in some places you can still buy guns. Did I understand you to say you cannot get alcohol and guns? Or cigarettes?
And cigarette. We don't have a gun control issue here. That's not what people do here, like for shopping. But with liquor and cigarette, initially at the beginning of the lockdown, or even days leading to the lockdown, the order was the liquor store will close. Weekdays it will close at 6 p.m. and or at 1 p.m. something like that. And weekends it will be 6 p.m. or the other way around. I can't remember now. I speak under correction. So that was the initial order that went out, and then it came back to say actually no, and cigarettes during this time. But of course, there are organized group opposing that. One of the opposing groups was people with addiction, something like that. Obviously, arguing that for people that struggle with it, it's not helpful. So yeah, that's the lockdown issue overall. And of course, I don't know what it's like in America. having only been there for a short time, I'm not sure about the America community. But here in South Africa, we've got majority of people live in shacks, live in townships. So the whole notion of self-isolation and so forth, for most of people in the country, it's a real issue, because how do you self-isolate when you don't have a proper home, when you don't have running and so forth? And sometimes from where I'm sitting, it sounds like, why? It surely can't be in 2020. But the reality is, for the majority of the people in the country, that's the reality. You live in a one-bedroom house, and there's quite there's sometimes 10 people. So that's one. And also the stockpiling. Some people, they really did on mouth to hand, and with many businesses closing during lockdown, obviously for the majority of people, it also becomes a serious concern. So that's where we are, over and above, making sure that everyone is safe.
When you said coping with oneself, that is a significant piece. And I don't smoke, I don't drink, so I can't relate to what it's like to say, you can't have alcohol today, you can't have cigarettes today. And those are ways that some people cope with things. Is there anything that the country is doing for mental health assistance to people so that they can cope with themselves?
Well, there is a lot of that in place, definitely. I mean, if I look at, for example, media specific in the country, there's a lot of that going, the goodwill going. I currently work at the University of Cape Town, and with the university community already, every day I receive the employees of the university different ways we can seek for help should one need help, as far as mental well-being goes. So there's that in place, and then people are nice, and will offer online session for free. So there is that in place, and it's helpful. I don't know if it's reaching everyone. I don't know if everyone has access to such services, but they obviously the government departments also work together to make sure that people are being helped, those that need help. Another interesting news article that came out yesterday, I still have to look into the article and really see what's happening, but the headline alone was disturbing in a sense that it talks about how much domestic cases are reported since lockdown. So of course that also calls for concern, like what is happening during this lockdown in some homes, in some relationships. So there's also that in place. I obviously can't really speak into that, but it makes you wonder what is really happening. Why do we have so many domestic violence related calls reported during this time?
I think it's stress. Stress impacts people's ability to get along. And then also just people by nature, they need to work on their conflict resolution skills. And a lot of times we don't have those. We do a lot of avoidance as addressing issues. And so being in close quarters and forced to do that, then having the extra stress of a loss of what people consider to be freedom, and then limited access to resources. People had plans and ideas of what their life was going to look like, and that has shifted overnight in many cases. And then there's this threat of health and welfare for you, for those you love. And I think those stresses, that not having those elements of Maslow's hierarchy, are causing people to respond perhaps not in the best of ways. And I think that attributes to it. That's why, to me, having your own system of wellness, meditation, prayer, creativity, art, taking in good things, feeding your soul, feeding your spirit, feeding your mind. You consume and you eat, but what you eat physically is as important as what you eat mentally. You know what I'm saying? So yes. I think that those are things we need to emphasize for people. I think that's why domestic violence issues are on the rise. And it's unfortunate. We had a situation I just read about yesterday, and I have been looking to get a psychologist on. I have one that I'm interviewing in Spain later today, but I want to get one in the US as well. There was a man who lost his job due to coronavirus, COVID-19, and he shot his fiancée or girlfriend in her back. She was running away. He shot after her several times, hit her in the back, and then he shot himself. He died, she survived. Neither of them had the disease, but the stress of that disease and life change led him to violence. That's why I think, like in our country, we should shutter access to guns right now, because there are people who may be making decisions based on the temporary emotion and stress that are unhealthy or that they would not do in their right mind. Wellness is really important. And
it is. I think time like this, because none of us have been here before. So we all are struggling for the first time in his phone. It's obviously going to be different from person to person, but it's so right. We need to take care of your well. Some of us, maybe we don't know what that. So I'm using my phone to hotspot this conversation this afternoon. And what happened is someone tried to call me, so it disrupted our call, obviously.
yeah, that happens sometimes. Thank you for taking the time. I know, you're all the way across the world and doing this. And
This
you're,
conversation was important to me. Thank you for the invitation.
oh, sure. You are essential. You're working. What is it that you do? You said you work at a university?
Yes, I work at the university. It's new. I started towards the end of last year. The University of Cape Town here in South Africa. I work for the Nelson Mandela School of Public Governance as a project coordinator. And it's been 5 months with the school, and it's such a privilege to be, first of all, part of the school that carries such a name and legacy, and the school's values, also about what Nelson Mandela stood for. So it's such a privilege and an honor, really, and very involved with some of amazing project within the school, and of course as part of the university. So that's what I do these days during the week between 9 to 5, when I'm not busy with the Dare to Dream Leadership Institute. That's the job I do.
Great. Now, how are you managing Dare to Dream right now with what's going on? Are you working with your students virtually? How are you managing?
At the moment, is nothing really is happening, obviously face to face. So we're trying to, in the behind the scene, what we focusing mostly for this year is raising funds and putting the administration in place. And it helps that I'm not alone. I mean, I'm part of a team now. And my co-partner, who's in Belgium, she's also very hands-on. So that's what we're currently doing at the moment, using this time to really have our administration in place, our strategic planning, going into the future, how to be more effective, how to reach more schools, because at the same time, I can't be everywhere. So the approach now is to also coach or train more mentors who, once we've been to the school, the local teachers, the local community can take over. And then social media also makes it so much easier. We've got a Facebook page, so that's also one way we have been trying to keep in contact with everyone. So yeah, that's basically where we are at the moment.
So if somebody wanted to help you or find out more about you and what you're doing, how do they find your different groups, Petunia?
Okay, so social Facebook page is one way, is the most effective way to reach us. I don't know, I find Facebook to be, it's the voice of the future, especially when you're working with young people. We are also on Twitter and Instagram, but I find Facebook to be the more interactive one. If you are on Facebook and you look for Dare to Dream, there are a lot of Dare to Dreams, but our Dare to Dream will say Dare to Dream Leadership Institute for Girls. So that's one way you can get hold of us. Another way is you can send me a personal email address. Can I share my email address?
Yes.
Okay, so Petunia at daretodreamproject.org. I'm always on my email. So if you want to start a big sister circle in your community, in your area, we can have a chat about that. If you are already doing something in your community as far as reaching out to young people, we can also have a conversation around that. We're always looking for ideas to mobilize and to be more effective and to be also relevant into young people's needs today. So if anyone is looking to collaborate or looking for ideas on how to start, I'll be happy to assist in that.
Petunia at daretodreamproject.org. She is willing to help you find sister circles, but they would be inclusive. So there'd be brother and sister circles and all-inclusive circles. And then also there's the Dare to Dream Initiative for Girls on Facebook. Petunia, you also did something unwittingly in 2015. You published a book. How does one unwittingly publish a book?
Well, I didn't publish a book myself. I found a publisher. It was an amazing, amazing project. I will, given the opportunity, I will absolutely do it again. Look, I studied communications, media. I've worked as a journalist. So, there is that in my background. But I'm one of those people, I didn't set out and say, I'm going to write a book. I love storytelling. I love the art of storytelling, however you tell your story. And I love to read, but honestly, writing a book wasn't one of the things that I set out to do. However, in 2015, I came across a 20 Beautiful Women movement on Twitter. And at first, it was really out of curiosity. I reached out to the lady. I said, hi, what is this all about? Because her tweet was basically saying, I'm looking for contributors. This is the project. And she responded almost immediately with details that I was looking for, with links, or telling me this is the link, look, go to the link, get more details. And the more I read about the project, which is basically, it's 20 Beautiful Women, and they were doing in 2015, it was African edition. So she was specific, the publisher, Asaba Tekel, she was basically looking for 20 contributors, 20 writers. Each person contributed a chapter, and it becomes a book. And at first I was like, it's really a good idea, but I'm not a writer. I'm not, there's a lot of things I was doing at the time, and writing a book was not one of the things I wanted to do. But long story short, the publisher, put me in touch with one of the contributors who is based in Namibia. And it just so happened a month later, I was in Windhoek in Namibia for a holiday with some of my friends. And I reached out to the other contributor, to say, listen, I'm in your country. I'm interested in the project, and I believe you're also part of it. Can we have coffee? We chatted, and she really, we talked about it into details, what it looks like, and all the cost involved, just getting published and having an editor and all that. And at this time, I was 99% convinced I'm going to be part of this project. Just to cut the long story short, really, I went home after that time in Namibia, sat down behind my laptop, started jotting down different ideas. What will my chapter be? Because the book is about igniting, inspiring and igniting a hope, and obviously written from a women's perspective. So there I was writing a chapter or contributing a chapter to hopefully inspire people about my story of hope. It's actually a story of hope, the common theme. Yeah, and within a couple of months, we, with the edits going back and forth and the drafts and the contracts and the publishing and all that, I think it took within a year that book was published and available. And that's how I became a published author, basically, being always observant, being curious, but taking a chance and believing, because that's another conviction I have. I strongly believe that each and every person, we all have a story. We all have a story to tell. How you tell that story, it's up to you. But deep down, we all have a story to tell. So I use that opportunity to share my story of hope, or to tell my story. It's not all of it, but part of my story is in that book. And it's my proudest project so far I've worked in. And I dedicated my chapter to my mom. So it's beautiful. I love it.
That is so touching. I'm so happy that you took the chance and had the courage to spread hope, and even more impressed that you dedicated it to your mom. That's beautiful. How did your mom react?
It was beautiful to watch because, I took time with the launch, and I was already in Cape Town when the book, by the time, I've had time to print the book and make it available and so forth. The publisher is based in America, so there was all that as well. So what I did what I called an unconventional book launch, which basically meant I went, into different places and shared my book. First in my local church, local circles, and then I flew to Johannesburg, spent some days there, going to different places with friends, and then eventually went to my hometown. So yeah, my mom, she still has a copy, obviously, and they read the book with my dad. They were very emotional. She was very emotional, and I said, I don't think I personally don't think I tell my mom enough how much I appreciate her. And this was one way to say, I appreciate you. I may not always have the right ways to say it, but I do appreciate you. So yeah.
That's beautiful. My first book, Ballerina in a Box, well, actually, it's not my first book, it's my second book, Ballerina in a Box, I dedicated to my parents. And I think my very first book, The Employment Mediator's Handbook, I think I made a dedication to my parents as well. So I understand that, and it's nice to be able to tell them thank you when they're here. And
it's very special. It's very special. But I'm inspired by people like you, Ali, our sisterhood started online, but the opportunity also we had to meet over breakfast in DC. That was very special. And I continue to watch what you do. It's very inspirational with the book, the recent book you launched, and your music. So yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing your story so generously. You always do. Whether you're behind the camera, in front of the camera, you do it so well. So continue to do that. You inspire so many of us.
okay, Petunia, I think you're going to make me cry. You're such an awesome person, and what you just said is so awesome. Thank you so much for that. I do believe in, gosh, I really am going to cry. I do believe in sharing your light. And I do believe that God puts us here to help each other. And as you know, my father passed away like 2.5 years ago. So that shifted everything. And I had to really pull deep to really look at the world and say, okay, what can I do? So part of this podcast came to me after he passed away, and it was like, let me connect people. I believe that we are quantumly entangled with each other and with God. And so the idea is to help people and raise like their love vibration as I raise my own. So thank you for helping me to do that and helping others to do that. And I truly hope that we'll meet again face to face in the flesh. And until then, I wish you God's blessings. And I thank you for being my guest and my friend.
Thank you so much, sister. Thank you. God bless you too.
Thank you, sister. God bless you. We will speak again. Much love to you.
We will. Thank you so much. Thanks, Ali.
Thank you. Be well. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Petunia Thulo. That was an emotional episode. Petunia is a favorite. She shared a lot, and she also shared some inspiration that I'll play for you now.
I absolutely love this quote by Brooke Hampton. I hope there are days when your coffee tastes like magic, your playlist makes you dance, strangers make you smile, the night sky touches your soul. I hope you fall in love with being alive again. I love this quote, got it from Pinterest.
So, what did you think of Petunia's favorite? I love that quote, and it doesn't surprise me that Petunia loves it because it involves coffee, and she is a self-professed professional coffee drinker, in addition to a publicist, an author, and someone who cares about the well-being of others. Petunia really brings out the best in people, and maybe she also causes people to connect with their inner being. And I will never forget this episode. I hope that you walk away with an understanding of how important it is to tell your stories and to believe that your dreams can come true. Please look for Petunia at daretodreamproject.org. Episode 110 is now complete, and we're moving into episode 111 next week, and that is going to feature Carla de Villa Crespo. She's a psychologist and a poet in Spain. I met her in New Zealand, and I am fascinated by her sense of fashion and her sense of self. God and Matter is produced by Arlie Speaks Media, LLC. Please visit our website, godandmatter.com, for more information. God and Matter is distributed through castbox.fm and available on YouTube. Please follow us at I Am Arlie Speaks or God and Matter. Thank you so much.